The thing I'd like to do before we move on to the agenda is just ask everybody on the committee this table here to introduce themselves, so people who are watching on the live stream and other people in the room know who we are. So if we start with Tom.
Yeah, Councillor Tom Flynn.
I'm Councillor Helen Dennis.
Councillor Anuda Al-Samurai, I'm the leader of the Liberal Democrats at Southwark Council.
Councillor Johnson City, represent Peckham.
Norman Coombe, I'm the legal representative.
Councillor Rosie Schimmel, I'm the Vice Chair of the committee.
I'm Councillor Gavin Edwards, and I'm Chair of the committee.
Shelley Burke, Scrutiny Officer.
Jasmine Alley, Councillor for the Lane Ward.
Maisie Anderson, Councillor for Newington Ward.
Councillor Rebecca Lurie.
Martin Record, Diocese of Southwark.
Thank you very much. Right, what I would like to do is just go through and jump over some of the formalities on the start of our agenda, because I've had a request from somebody who's come to speak on the item 6 on the update of the overview report on the delivery of 11,000 homes, that there's a bit of a time issue this evening and they'd like to be able to make their contribution a little bit earlier. But I would still like to take the rents on commercial premises item first. So I'm just going to take the one item that I have to take at the start of the meeting and I can't come back to, is the disclosure of interests and dispensations. So first of all, do any members of the committee have any interests or dispensations to declare? No? Okay, right. So I'm going to come back to the other items at the start of our agenda a little bit later and go straight on to rents on commercial premises. And we have two people from Baker Tilly, or are you still called Baker Tilly?
No,
you changed your name. So it's Walter and Manpreet to come forward and give us an update on their work on this issue. That would be great. Yes. Thank you. So just to give a little bit of context to this, for anybody who's not aware of the work we've been doing on this particular issue, obviously the council owns a huge number of properties across the borough. Many of them are homes, but also the council owns commercial premises and also community and voluntary sector premises that are rented or otherwise by other organisations and businesses. And for quite some time, we were trying to get to the bottom of exactly what the policy was and also how that was being implemented, and whether or not, in particular, there were some premises that were being charged the market rate that perhaps shouldn't have been, or also other premises that were being charged less than market rate, or indeed nothing at all, that should not be in that category. Now, there's obviously it's quite a complicated issue, and things have changed over time. Indeed, the council's policy has changed over time. But one of the ways we decided to really get under the skin of this was for this committee to commission the council's auditors to do a detailed investigation of the particular properties that were being rented out, including taking a sample of those properties. As ever, we've got the lights dipping at this particular stage, so thank you, Shelley. So Manpreet and Walter have come along from the name of the organisation? RSM tonight. They've recently changed their name. To give us another progress update. You'll remember that at our last meeting, Manpreet came along and gave us an idea of how the investigation would progress, including how they were scoping out particular properties in which to look at. So I'm going to just hand over to you initially, just to give us a quick update, and then maybe we'll launch into a few questions. So over to you, Walter and Manpreet.
That's fine. So just where we are, so we've looked at 30 properties, pretty much coming from different, with different characteristics. Actually, we tried to get as much of a spread of different properties as we possibly could. Where we've got to at the moment, I think the initial finding from our point of view is that a lot of the paperwork goes back, some of it nearly 80 years and further, and there's a lot of complexity, as you would imagine, within this. Where we've got to is we've been able to find evidence and find a lot of documentation for all the 30. There are some tricky and difficult judgments that have been made over the years. And where we are at the moment is Property Services, who have cooperated fully, by the way. They've opened the books and really helped us to do all of this. Actually, we can't in any way complain about that. What's taking a little bit of extra time is trying to find corroborating evidence for some of the judgments that have been made, particularly those that go back in time, significantly back in time. And it's important to understand what happened sometimes 40, 50, 60 years ago to understand where we've got to today. So that's why it's taking a little bit longer. But I think we've made very good progress. We've had full cooperation. We've been, everything's been opened up to us, and people have been helpful towards us. Property services have been, and they currently have it and are currently helping further. So I think we would be in a position, we expect to be in a position to report fully to you at the next meeting, which is in the middle of January.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Great. Thank you very much. I should have added at the start that immediately following our last OSC meeting, I, having gone through the full list of properties, had a meeting with Manpreet and her colleague to just highlight 6 or 7 that jumped out at me as unusual, things that you wouldn't expect organisations on peppercorn rents that you wouldn't expect to be on peppercorn rents, and also some vice versa as well. And I gather they are forming part of your sample and scope investigation.
Yeah,
is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
great.
And some of these go back, as I said, many years. I mean,
Yeah.
some of these leases are handwritten, and the writing is fading on the documents. I mean,
So I'll jump in with a few questions, but if members of the committee want to come in after, please do. Just to get an idea of exactly where this is going, some of the examples that I discovered when I was looking at this, and I won't name the properties or the individual companies at this stage, were properties that were clearly being run on a commercial basis by organisations that clearly have no charitable intent whatsoever, which is fine, they're businesses, but which were on peppercorn rents, and it was completely unclear to me why that would be. I even came across one property which I looked up on Google Street View, and it had a sign in the window saying "to let, call blah blah blah" in order to let, which of course immediately set alarm bells ringing. Now I know you can't go into those individual cases right now. I know the report will go into those individual cases, but what progress have you been making on those kinds of cases? Are you coming up with explanations that say, actually, yes, there is a good reason for this, or have you yet found anything that you think, actually, there's no explanation whatsoever for this? Are we going to see some examples of things that really just need to change as a matter of urgency?
Yeah, I think I don't want to preempt where we're going to go,
which is what I'm asking you to do. But
absolutely, that's what you asked me, and I'm not going to preempt.
Okay.
Absolutely,
Okay.
But I want to stress that we're dealing with something that's quite complicated. That goes over a very long period of time. I mean, some of the decisions were made in the 1920s and 1930s. Okay, particularly around some of the peppercorn rents.
Yeah.
Okay, and trying to find out why that happened at that stage is quite tricky at this stage. Where we are now. So that's what's taking the time. Actually, is trying to get explanations for things that just don't really look right at the moment. Now, I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying there's anything untoward there, but we want to give them time. We want to give the department time to actually uncover the evidence that goes that far back, so we can present a balanced and true picture of where you are. So, I mean, by the very nature of these things, we will end up with some very interesting things to discuss.
Good.
Absolutely,
That's what
I'm
we
sure.
like.
But at this stage, I can't surmise, and I won't preempt the results of the review.
I'll stop my fishing exercise now. Any other members of the committee have any questions at this stage? No. So thank you very much for coming along this evening. I know it's been a very short session, but it does help show everybody that there's momentum behind this and that the work is being done. So you're going to come back in January with a report. We look forward to it with bated breath, and we'll see you in January. Thank you very much.